Good morning, everyone. So, as we all know that Satcom industry is transforming at an unprecedented pace, especially driven by Starlink progressions across different use cases. And we all know that the competition is going to further intensify once Kuiper solution is online. And hence, most of the satellite operators are looking into multi-orbit solutions. And to discuss this topic, we need to understand what are the key drivers of the multi-orbit solutions, what are the challenges, and what are the innovations which are going within the industry. And to start my question, I would like to start with Mark. Mark, how do you see multi-orbit solutions moving forward, and how do you see the key drivers for the solution at the moment?
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm a born optimist. People who know me will confirm that. Also in the case of MEO and LEO, alternatives to GEO, if you understand the nature of a LEO constellation, or any type of constellation that's not stationary, you understand that they cover the globe in a uniform way, which means you have as much capacity over places where you have customers as where you do not have customers and will never find customers because there's nothing there. This means that by definition these systems are inefficient, which pushes them to get their price point as low as possible through vertical integration. And for me, being an optimist, I believe in the future of GEO because there's always going to be need to top up capacity where LEO or MEO constellations get full, and where there is no further positive business case to uniformly add another layer of one of these systems globally, just because you're full in Nebraska or you're full over Malaysia, and wasting all the other capacity that is useless in the rest of the world. That business case gets increasingly difficult to make if you're a non-GEO operator. And so there's a future for GEO in topping up, at least in that. I think the big challenge we have is that we are not vertically integrated as a GEO ecosystem. We don't build our own satellites. The people who build satellites are still building them the way they were building them 20, 30 years ago, to a large extent, and are having trouble innovating, as we've seen with the delays with the software-defined satellites. For me, that's the real challenge. The challenge is not Starlink or Kuiper. The challenge is how do we improve our cost per bit as a GEO operator, not being integrated. That's the real challenge.
Got it. I'll move to Bala Balamurali. What are the key drivers that you see within the industry, especially for the multi-orbit solution?
Thank you, Vivek. One of the good things about being in a panel where one of the industry veterans speaks before you is that he's already made the case for you. So now it's easy for me to just explain how we're trying to do it. So Eutelsat OneWeb, following the merger last year, is a combination of 650 plus low Earth orbiting satellites and about 34 GEO satellites. So technically, we, I think, are the world's first operating multi-orbit satellite operator. OneWeb has 650 plus LEO satellites in a 1,200 kilometer orbital altitude. And as Mark pointed out, we cover the entire globe with our LEO constellation, supported by ground networks, which contain about 40 plus Earth stations. It's a massive undertaking and a massive investment globally. And as you've heard, it sort of lights up parts of the world where there is really no use. So we need to innovate and have technology that somehow saves our satellites in those areas and uses it where it's needed. And at the same time, you're going to have to comprehend or deal with challenges that's beyond just technology and coverage. Even if you light up an area, you will have regulatory, geopolitical issues, and other reasons why you will not be able to offer the service. And there again, so I did this analysis recently, and I figured, we got barely 10% of the populated land that we have to make all our money out of. And that's not an easy ask. So to complementing GEO together with the LEO constellation we have makes it possible for us to sort of balance the network density, to have a scalable, flexible approach that means we can actually offer connectivity and pure coverage where that's needed, and offer the low latency capabilities that LEO brings where it's necessary. The demand drivers are there. As you know, we're expecting in-flight connectivity, for example, to double by 2032, and overall value of satellite connectivity to also double or triple in the coming years. But the problem is, how do you deliver that in a way that is cost-effective for us as a company? Because not all of us can sort of cross-subsidized left and right. We need to actually answer to our shareholders in a manner that it operates like a real company. So I'll just stop there. It's a very long answer, but I think we're generally trying to leverage both the capabilities of LEO and GEO at Eutelsat OneWeb to bring the best we can to the customers.
Thanks for that. Robert, your viewpoints on multi-orbit.
Yeah, look, it's a good question to start with. The bottom line is when you speak to your customers, the end users, or whichever vertical you're chasing, they really don't care as much as we do if it's LEO, GEO, or MEO. They want an SLA, they want something that works at the right price point. Okay, we seem to be hung up about what multi-orbit means. And a lot of my answers today will be really pointing towards the end user terminal, the smart edge terminal, which we believe is really the panacea to many of our problems. But I think that when we talk about multi-orbit, we're speaking about it as if it is something new. It isn't. We've been doing this for over 10 years. I remember working in the Pacific where we were adding C or KU band terminals to MEO to ensure higher levels of availability in SLAs. That in itself is multi-orbit. Fast forwarding, Intelsat invested in Kymeta in 2017, and we saw that flat panel technology back then would allow us to enter the land mobility markets, chase that high margin, high profit business that was out there at the time. This year we've invested in Greenerwave again, which is a European-based manufacturer of terminal equipment. We've been looking at multi-orbit for many years now, first of all initiating multi-orbit solutions with the US Defense. And what we're seeing is, as we're digging into these verticals, there are enormous opportunities where we are now looking at OEM markets, where we are looking to other agricultural sectors to open up new revenue streams, which will in large part rely on electronically steerable antennas. And that is how I think we'll sort out the multi-orbit problem.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, hi, good morning everyone. Sawadee Krap. Yeah, I think in terms of the multi-orbit play, we understand that today each orbit and every orbit has its pros and cons. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, right? And from SES perspective today, when we talk about multi-orbit drivers, we look at the ability to perform or the ability to have a solution across all orbits or a combination of 2 or 3 of those orbits in order to map the right technology, the right orbit to the right use case or to the right demand depending on the requirement that we have. I think that's the key element in terms of SES multi-orbit play. Today, SES is operating or kind of ticks the box in terms of 2 out of 3 of the orbits, right? In which we have the GEO and the O3B or O3B mPOWER MEO. We acknowledge that the missing element here is the LEO, and with the likes of Starlink, OneWeb, and in future the LEO players coming in, it's definitely a force to be reckoned with as well. So depending on which market and which applications we are targeting, we see the LEO component as also a good fit in terms of completing the multi-orbit play, right? When it comes to the customer or the end user perspective, I think the key drivers here would be the ability to perform the orbit orchestration, and basically dynamically shift between orbits in order to provide a highly reliable, highly secured, and highly resilient network backed up with strong SLAs, right? And also, I think in terms of driving the digital transformation initiatives today, right, in various markets like the energy, mining, oil and gas, government, military, as well as the enterprise markets as well, in which the demand is increasing, requires high throughput, low latency, a high SLA kind of network. So that's where we see the key drivers are.
Thanks for that. So 2 key points are mentioned. One is end users are orbit agnostic. Eventually, it comes down to pricing and the bandwidth. And it is important not only to make the solution multi-orbit at the end user level, but also at the space asset level by orchestrating the entire network. So my next question is, do you think, considering Starlink and Kuiper pricing and end user demand ramping up and becoming more price sensitive across different use cases, do you think multi-orbit solution will be able to position themselves appropriately in order to capture the downstream market? Mark?
Well, I think because of the reasons I mentioned earlier, that there will be a need. What I'm slightly worried about is underinvestment. If you look at the number of satellites that have been ordered this year and compare that to the mid to long-term average of numbers of satellites that have been ordered, we're going to have a supply crunch in the coming years, which will be good for pricing, maybe, but it's going to create problems. So I think if people can have the courage to think of Warren Buffett's strategy of counter-cyclical investment, but it takes some guts, there's an opportunity arising, and I hope to be part of a company that's thinking that way.
Thanks for that. Bala, key innovations that you see that must happen in order to position the multi-orbit solutions appropriately in terms of bandwidth and market demand?
Yeah, so that's it's a very broad question. The thing is, even though we have global networks, we have to work locally in every market. And this region especially is extremely price sensitive. And you have, you mentioned Starlink as an operator who's actually become an operator in the country. One of the things that's important for us is also the positioning in the market, and I think this is beyond just technology and commercials. This is also regulations, this is also policy. OneWeb sees itself as a partner of the telco, the mobile operator. So we have always been working with mobile operators and fixed line operators, since 40 years of Eutelsat. And with the combination of OneWeb, what we bring to the market is an ability to enhance their offering to the customer. So now it's a matter of fitting our solution into their value proposition. So it's slightly different to actually delivering end customer service. We see ourselves as the real, genuine partner of the mobile operator or the fixed line operator. And so then, that being said, then it becomes an issue of how do you then fit your cost profile and your investments into something that, a value chain that already exists. as been mentioned before by the panelists, the customer doesn't really care if it is on a LEO, GEO, or satellite fiber. He just wants a certain level of service. What we're trying to do is to innovate ourselves to be the operator's partner, which means SLAs, CIRs, a resilient network, make sure that there is backup and offload capacity and onload as and when necessary between the networks. There's quite a lot of work that needs to be done, but not all of it is happening seamlessly, automatically right now. There's ongoing investments. I mean, Eutelsat OneWeb is planning for its next generation of LEO satellites, which probably won't come into operation for another 3 to 5 years. But technology is moving extremely fast, and there is a huge amount of development that's happening. And look, not all of it can be commercially justified at this moment, because I think, if you really look at the competition, and there's meetings taking place in Indonesia as we speak, where Starlink has been made to sit with the regulator and the operators, and they've been forced to find ways to work together. Now, I don't believe in saying going direct to the end customer, and at the same time working with partners. Sooner or later, that is going to create channel conflict, and you have to deal with that. I'm sorry for mentioning, you mentioned the name Starlink, so I have to give you that as an example. But what we have to do is also sort of identify your position in the market and innovate accordingly, right? And that's what we're trying to do.
I think that when Starlink began to gain momentum 3 years ago, it opened up a new conversation. The narrative with the customer did shift to higher speeds, lower price. So you've got to be cognizant of that. You've got to take it on board. What Intelsat began to do is really embrace a future direction. We're talking about a plan B here, and that is about really pivoting towards services, becoming a robust managed service provider and integrator to our customers. So if we have a look at how that is translated to getting multi-orbit ready, I think that our commitment with OneWeb is an excellent example where we invested in $250 million worth of air capacity. And what we've done with that is we've actually integrated our networks together. So off the back of their gateways, we're fundamentally meeting at POPs, and we're providing our own managed services wrapper around that. And we are building products which fit the customer requirements. So when you are speaking to a telco, a broadcaster, a mobility customer, we, with our terminal roadmap, that electronically steerable antenna, will allow us to blend product innovation, get fast-tracked as well. Okay?
Mandeep, key positioning and innovations that you see that must happen so that multi-orbit solution can position itself appropriately in the industry?
Yeah, I think apart from having the space asset itself to complete this multi-orbit offering, I think one of the key innovation would be, as mentioned by the panel itself earlier, in terms of the ground segment enhancement, right? I think today we see a lot of this innovation in terms of terminals and platforms on the military side of things, in terms of where we have the terminal that can do multi-orbit, multi-band, multi-platform, So I think, but he's not kind of reached to the other segments as of yet, right? Today, when we talk about enterprise and some of the other sectors. So I think, on how we basically optimize the traffic resources, we optimize the resources in terms of the space as well as the ground segment. I think that is very key in terms of the key enhancement. Another thing that we are developing and trying to adopt and integrate internally within SES is also the enhancements in terms of the SD-WAN technology, right? Today, as part of the orchestration between orbits and the digital layer that we have, I think SD-WAN plays a very important role here. And today, we can see this in terms of the cruise as well, where we have implemented a combination of both MEO and LEO services. and then where we use SD-WAN to intelligently map the traffic, whether it's depending on the critical applications versus the non-so-critical applications. Or in the case of MEO and LEO, we can also look at it as upload heavy, which is something that our MEOs today, in terms of O3B power, can do very efficiently, and also download heavy. We're talking about welfare, crew welfare, and basically having the customer or user experience in terms of the cruise sector. Another important thing to note, I think, is also integrating AI, to better manage the satellite and ground resources. I think that is something that we are planning to do and do it in real time through the automation. It's not quite there yet. I think there's a lot of work to be done, but I think that will be a key innovation by itself as well.
Thanks for that. And as you mentioned, AI in order to integrate different capacities, and SES is investing on that side. Where do you see that project moving forward? Like, can we have a tentative timeline around it? Like, what can we expect from it?
No, it's relatively, I would say, it's quite new. So there's a lot of work that's ongoing. I don't have exact details to share in terms of the roadmap or in terms of what exactly being done technically, but definitely we are looking at it very seriously.
Okay. So indeed, the key opportunity for multi-orbit solution will be around enterprise VSAT market, government and military market, and mobility market. How do you see multi-orbit solution moving forward in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you see the greater penetration for these solutions?
The largest market is enterprise networking in its broadest sense. And I think that's maybe linking it to the GEO mindset that is changing. This industry used to a large extent, have a very large video component to it, which was, frankly, a very easy market, a very expensively priced capacity market, which sort of made maybe some of us a little bit like fat cats, and we lost the agility that we need to put back into this industry because of that. My company changed its name, putting the word agility in there for that precise reason. So we need to be able to pursue opportunities which are smaller, more geographically diverse, and require more effort to make the sale than this industry on average has done in the past. There are huge opportunities out there, but we need to start thinking more like a service integrator. I've heard that word this morning already a few times. We need to stop thinking like a slow-moving wholesale provider of just capacity, because that's not what the customers want. And that's the mindset that we need to go through. And it requires thinking about multi-orbits. It requires putting ourselves in the shoes of the customer, and coming up with solutions that are tailored to the needs of the customer, and not just, selling large chunks of transponders. Those days are over.
Bala?
So in terms of verticals, we see it really is going to be driven by the customer requirements. As I mentioned, the aviation industry is a classic one to benefit from the LEO-GEO combination we have. One is, ubiquitous coverage, and the other is, of course, then comes to how the applications that are going to be used on board will evolve so that you can decide, should it be served with a LEO or a GEO? Now, it also ultimately comes down, the solutions right now are mostly SD-WAN based. But sooner or later, we're going to, as we already have in development, user terminals that can deal with both GEO and LEO satellite constellations. So as the technology evolves, then the question ultimately becomes, we see opportunity mainly in the maritime and aviation industry as like the standard given opportunity. But over and above that, as Mark mentioned, in the enterprise segment too, the requirement of the customer is changing. So there is an increasing requirement for low latency, high bandwidth, reliable connectivity, which is driven by, autonomous vehicles, IoT type applications, anything that's machine-to-machine based where latency becomes critical for the connectivity. So I think the answer is not, there is no one single answer. I think mainly it's going to be driven by customer application development and evolution of that technology and how quickly we can evolve and support that.
I think multi-orbit is going to open up a plethora of opportunity, but they will not be gold nuggets lying on the ground to pick up, right? We're going to have to go digging and mining. And if I think about some of the work that we're doing at the moment globally, and I'm casting my thoughts across the verticals that we operate in, you mentioned aeronautical, Bala. Without any question, we're seeing multi-orbit factoring very heavily there. I think American Airlines have signed up to about 500 multi-orbit aircraft using our TKU product. Japanese Airlines, again, putting it on their fleet. So aeronautical, huge users. If I think about some of the work that we're doing in the land mobility segment, and I'm really excited about this segment, I think about South America. We've just done a deal with Case New Holland, where we are looking to automate their construction vehicles, their farm vehicles. Now, you've got to remember this stuff, when you buy one of these tractors or excavators, etc., they're hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they're at various levels of digital maturity. Some just may need telematics, some may need full automation. And the reality is that these vehicles and these businesses will need connectivity. That comes through multi-orbit applications. So if we look at agriculture, if we then move into the space of mobility, through to the connected car, which is coming quite quickly, I think, you will see the need for multi-orbit capacity and solutions sooner rather than later.
Mandeep?
Yeah, I think, so when we're talking about multi-orbit itself, right, I think partnerships is very, very important here. SES itself don't intend to target every market, but there are a couple of key markets that we would like to target in terms of military, for example, right, enterprise and also mobility segment. So I think having a multi-orbit solution can can exhaust a lot of resources. It's very, in terms of the funding as well, requires a lot of extensive capex. So I think partnerships here is key, to enable for us to be able to provide this offering. I mean, a few examples I can give in terms of SES, like we have this SES Open Orbits, which is the in-flight connectivity multi-orbit solution. As a matter of fact, Thai Airways and Turkish Airlines just signed up for it and decided to upgrade their fleet to this SES Open Orbits, which leverages a lot on partnerships as well, because it provides seamless connectivity for good passenger experience. And we partner with various different regional satellite operators. We partner with aircraft manufacturers. And I think it's also a good time to note that just a couple of days ago, the Space Rise, right, a consortium of 3 satellite operators, as well as some other key members, was awarded awarded to build, operate, and design the IRIS-2 or IRIS² constellation, right? And basically that also involves a lot of partnership that we are partnering with various different satellite operators as well as vendors. So I think moving forward, in order to be able to have this fully integrated multi-orbit solution, I think partnerships is definitely a key factor here as well.
Thanks for that. And as we can see that multi-orbit solution, lots of innovation at the ground segment level, gateway level, space asset level are happening. But I do think that there's something that industry needs to address, that is pace of innovation. Mark, do you see the pace of innovation comparing the pace at which LEO has moved forward is something that industry must address and look into?
It's definitely something we need to deal with. The problem is something I mentioned earlier, the fact that we're not vertically integrated, which means you don't have the quick feedback loops between, you know, if you're a Copa or you're a Starlink, between your sales and your product people and your ground people and your space people and so on. Here it needs to go through partnerships which inherently take more time and are less forceful. There's not one CEO saying thou shalt and get it done. It requires communication, it requires convincing. Different boards need to approve different business cases and so on, so it's more stochastic in nature and unpredictable. And so we're suffering as an industry the consequences of all this because space segment, ground segment manufacturers, it's easy for me to say, but they could have foreseen maybe the evolution that this industry was going to be taking, and they didn't act fast enough, and now we're in reaction mode, and so we're chasing something the train's already left the station, let's say.
Do we have questions? So we'll move to the audience question and answer session. Yeah, so the first question is for Eutelsat OneWeb. Do you have funding for your second generation satellites? If so, when will you start launching? If not, what is your plan to get to your second satellite?
It was a matter of time before somebody threw that question. Well, Eutelsat is a profitable business, as you all know, for some time now, and with the combination of OneWeb, we are strengthening that situation. Having said that, I mean, of course, there is always money for the right cause. You know, as I was going to mention when Mark talked about, has the train left the platform, we're chasing, you know, how to invest. There's the theoretical answer and then there's the practical answer. Investors, you know, want to be given some degree of comfort now as you know, you see how the industry is evolving. They want to know if they're going to get the return for their money or not. I mean, I see there's return on investment and there is return on effort. When you're the first guy in the market, you put a lot of effort. I mean, I've been into markets where I've had to sit with regulators and take them through what LEO is and how different LEO is and why we need new types of regulations so that we don't, you know, we get a chance to exist in that market. So once you put in all that effort, the beneficiary usually is not you. It's the guy who comes second, and you can actually go there and say, hey, this is how, because they've learned the lessons and they can move things forward. With the second generation sort of funding, we have learned a lot of lessons from our first generation effort and how we went about it. So there's massive amount of innovation that's being planned for as we speak. And naturally, it will come with the necessary funding we need. So, you know, for the person who asked the question, I would say absolutely yes, we have funding together with the technological innovations in plan. But a lot of it will depend on the timing of it and how we roll it out in the market. It's really going to depend on how we progress in the next 2 to 3 years. A lot of the hard work has been done with the first generation, and you know we've had a system ready to launch in Thailand for more than a year and a half. I mean, I'm not trying to call out, since we're in Thailand, I can tell you about it, but we've not been able to roll out the service for a whole bunch of reasons, and not least because of regulation. And I'm not singling out Thailand in that. There is many markets like that we have to deal with. So once we know exactly how to focus and how to get a decent return for the investors' money, there is money to be, you know, to launch the second generation of satellites.
Thanks for that. So the next question is on standardization. So because of lack of standardization, has the GEO market excluded itself from integrating with LEO solutions?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It kind of crosses over with a panel that I'm on this afternoon, but quite frankly, I think the greatest campfire that's ever been built for our satellite industry is the 3GPP standards group, where we've seen revisions 16 through to 19 just build momentum around standardizing around 5G. Okay, now, if we believe that that is going to be the prevailing standard, the vertically integrated players, which are, you know, typically hitching their wagons to LTE wavelengths, etc., are really the ones that are kind of going to be on the outside, if you think about it in those terms. If 5G will be the form of standardization for GEO operators who are deeply concerned about satisfying their telecommunications customers, their M&O customers, we will be horizontally integrated with those businesses. It'll be those that choose wavelengths that aren't really supported that will remain on the outside. Now, that really is a call to action to our industry's vendors as well, where we continue to build, could we say, mod cods, wavelengths, and all sorts of other things which are very proprietary, will keep us contained in that cottage industry mode. We really need to, you know, come together as an ecosystem and say, let's believe in this standard so that we can become part of a greater ecosystem of opportunity. Okay, so I don't necessarily agree with that comment at all.
Mandeep, would you like to add to that?
You're talking about the next question, or?
No, the standardization one. So.
No, I think I agree with, I don't have any further comments on that one. But if you're talking about, I mean, I can take the next question in terms of the GEO and MEO LEO hardware.
Sure.
Right? So I don't think today GEO is significantly, you know, the cost is significantly higher compared to LEO. Yes, you can say it's slightly higher, but I think there's a lot of improvement has gone a long way in terms of the GEO ground segment itself, right? So I think essentially when we offer a multi-orbit solution and we offer a fully integrated managed services with service delivery, I think the right costing model or the right commercial model is very, very important in terms of how we balance, you know, to justify the business case as well as be competitive, right? So today, being a fully managed service operator or service provider, right? Essentially, the customer does not need to worry whether they are on MEO, GEO, or LEO, right? And don't need to worry even about the hardware, right? We embed this as part of the commercial modeling, whether it's Mbps, whether it's volume-based. So I think that's on us, but you know, it's the right commercial model to balance this as well. Yeah.
Thanks for that. With this, the time is up for the session, and I would, any final remarks or comments would you like to mention? Closing remarks? Mandeep, Robert, Bala, or Mark?
Just that I'm looking forward to a great future for this industry and the next 30 APSCCs.
Yeah, absolutely. So, thank you everyone for the insightful discussion and key points around the multi-orbit solution. And thank you to the audience as well.